There goes Davis. Oh my God! Davis is going to run it all the way back.
Here comes pressure. Bortles sees it coming. Looking for Wharton in the end zone. Wharton behind the defense. Oh! Are you kidding?
For a new year of high expectations. Today they get their first glimpse of the 2014 team. Of course, last fall, that War Eagle battle cry echoed throughout an SEC championship run, all the way to within 13 seconds of a national title.
It's undefeated Florida State against once beaten Auburn. Wide open in the middle. Touchdown Auburn. It's a meltdown by the #1 team in the country. Whitfield's coming out. 30, 40, daylight, and Auburn is stung by its own medicine. Mason steps outside right, breaks the daylight. Still going. Not quite yet out of miracles. End zone, jump ball. Touchdown. Florida State rules the BCS.
We welcome you to Auburn, Alabama, where it's A-Day and you're watching the SEC on ESPN. It's the Auburn Tigers hosting their annual spring game, a chance to see how the SEC champions have developed in recent weeks and find out where they could be headed come this fall. So we say good afternoon, everybody. Joe Tessitore alongside Todd Blackledge. Todd, a year ago, 83,000 showed up to this A-Day spring game to welcome a new coach, but a team that was winless in the SEC, a team that would go on to play for the national championship. Now they go from no expectations a year ago to trying to live up to expectations.
Yeah, a little different situation this year, but I'm still amazed when I think of the job that Gus Malzahn and his staff did with Auburn last year. Remember, in 2012, this team didn't win an SEC game, and they came very close to winning it all a year later. And I think he did two things. He won the locker room by loving up on the kids, fixed that problem, and for the second time in 4 years, he caught lightning in a bottle with a junior college quarterback.
That is Nick Marshall, who returns. Senior now is Nick Marshall, 1,000-yard rusher a year ago. What's the next step for him, Todd?
Develop as a passer, because most teams now are going to try to make Auburn beat them throwing the football. He has arm talent, but he really has had to work this spring on his footwork, his balance, and his timing. The play-action passing that goes along with this running game can be devastating.
Tom Luganbill is our field-level analyst today, standing by with the leader of that great turnaround.
Well, Coach, you're about to complete your second spring here at the helm at Auburn, but under different circumstances this time around. Everybody has priorities for spring football. What have yours been this time around?
Yeah, it was really develop some depth and just get better at our core, our base offense and defense. I feel pretty good about where we're at, and I'm looking forward to watching our guys play in front of our crowd today.
Well, as you wrap up here with the A-Day game, a great crowd on hand, what do you want to come away with this day as having accomplished on this day?
Well, we want to get better, first of all, and give us a chance to evaluate our young guys in front of our crowd for the first time. That's always good, and just to play good, hard-nosed Auburn football in front of our crowd.
All right, Coach, stay healthy.
All right, thanks. All right.
Second year as the head coach here at Auburn for Gus Malzahn, and there is Nick Marshall, his 6'1" senior quarterback, enters his second year as the starter. Last year at this time, Todd, he wasn't even here. He arrived in summertime, just before fall camp, and brought him all the way to the national title.
And he was brilliant down the stretch, the second half of the season, particularly running the zone read aspect of this offense. The best running team in college football. The passing game is what he's been working on most in the spring. I think today when we see Nick Marshall on the field, we won't see him running the zone read. We're going to see him throwing the football and developing that Auburn pass game today.
Schedule that Marshall and that Auburn offense will be going after come this fall. Of course, always tough playing in the SEC West. You have South Carolina from the East, and then a tricky non-conference game, a Thursday nighter on the road at K-State.
Yeah, always a tough, first of all, a tough place to get to, tough place to play. Bill Snyder's teams are very physical in the way that they play, the style of game they play. That'll be an interesting game for this Auburn football team.
Of course, games with revenge on the mind for their opponents. November 15th at Georgia, and then the Iron Bowl this year will be at Alabama, Tuscaloosa.
Gus Malzahn is going to be on the field standing behind the action. And his biggest responsibility, not just watching his team, is to blow the whistle to prevent his quarterbacks who are wearing orange jerseys from being hit. It's live for everybody but the quarterbacks, and he's going to be the guy that ends the play with the whistle.
Heisman finalist Trey Mason off to test the NFL. So Cameron Artis-Payne gets the start. And exactly what we thought we'd see is Nick Marshall airing it out early as he was looking for Ricardo Lewis. He of the Prayer at Jordan-Hare 73-yard reception for the win against Georgia.
Second down.
Lewis has great speed. One of the things I think that will really help Nick Marshall in developing this pass game, I think they have better talent and depth at the wide receiver position, significantly better than they had a year ago.
Second down and 10. And this time they do get it to Lewis. He makes one move and then is out to the 36-yard line where he is tackled by Robinson Therese. 6-yard reception for Lewis. Up-tempo pace. Rhett Lashley, the offensive coordinator, being put forth here early. Artis-Payne comes in motion now on 3rd and 4, and they go with the inside screen as Sammy Coates. And Coates wiggles his way for a first down to the 46-yard line.
Well, first 3 plays, 3 passes, 1 deep shot on first down. The next 2 plays were little screens. Get the ball out of the quarterback's hands quickly and into a playmaker's hands. Sammy Coates, we both noticed, Tom also, how much bigger and stronger Sammy Coates looks than he did a year ago.
Walked into our meetings yesterday. I thought it was a outside linebacker coming in to say hello. What a physical presence he is out on the perimeter. Here's Marshall now down the near side, and that was just out of bounds as he was looking at Marcus Davis.
Now, part of that is Nick Marshall throwing it too close to the sideline, but on both of those incompletions down the sideline, the receivers need to help too. They need to press their man more to the inside. That's easy coverage for a cornerback. If the guy continues to widen out to go for the football, you can just force him right out of bounds and force the incompletion.
It was T.J. Davis on the coverage. We've been hoping for big things out of him, dealing with a hamstring. Cameron Artis-Payne straight up the middle, crossing midfield, Tom.
Well, yeah, and that's the first run we've seen from Auburn, and that's by design. Rhett Lashley, the offensive coordinator, Gus Malzahn, they want to throw the football. They need Nick Marshall to become more proficient. As Todd referenced in our open, everybody's going to load up the box now. You're going to expect Auburn to try to run for 290, 300. But now it's going to be about throwing the football to move the ball at critical times during a game, and that's where Nick Marshall's got to make his greatest improvement. Expect the ball in the air a lot.
Kenny Flowers that time on the tackle of Cameron Artis-Payne. It'll be 4th down and less than 1.
Yeah, pretty good job by this number 2 defense in white, getting that stop on 3rd down and relatively short and forcing the 4th down play.
Artis-Payne in the backfield with Marshall. He finds that opening on the left side. It'll be a first down to the 38-yard line, brought down by Brandon King.
Again, the thing that Nick Marshall became so good at last year was the zone read part of the offense. This was a give all the way. Again, he's not live running it, but he has a great feel for that aspect of their offense. And of course, he and Trey Mason last year, that mesh point was so good. It was very difficult to tell which one of them had the football, and that's what they need to develop now with this new set of running backs lined up behind Nick Marshall.
Artis-Payne was the star of last year's A-Day. Had 117 yards rushing, another 47 receiving. He gets the first crack at replacing Trey Mason. Second and 6 now for Marshall. And Payne's trying to get around to the edge, and he's tripped up at the 31-yard line by McEnroe Alexander, the sophomore star linebacker, that hybrid position in Ellis Johnson's defense.
One of the things that Ellis Johnson told us yesterday that their defense had the most trouble with last year was adjusting to formation, adjusting to changes in the offensive look, and they got bad fits, or they got out of position. They gave up too many big chunk running plays. We've seen already, even with this backup unit, a little bit more fundamentally sound in the run game.
Here's a completion on 3rd down to Marcus Davis that'll move the chains.
mentioned the wide receiver depth. You've got guys that played last year, Marcus Davis, Sammy Coates, Ricardo Lewis, Quan Bray. You've got Duke Williams, the most heralded junior college receiver, in camp now as well.
And Artis Payne continues with good work here on this opening drive to the 14-yard line, tackled by Cameron Toney.
They've really been pleased with Cameron Artis Payne. They feel like he has really stepped up in the spring. Again, Trey Mason was the workhorse last year.
And here he is now coming off the edge and taking it right into the end zone. So Cameron Artis Payne with the opening score of this spring game, as the blue team, which represents the first team, the starters, goes out in front. Daniel Carlson for the PAT. As Cody Parkey, place kicker from last year's SEC championship team, has graduated. Good look of Cameron Artis Payne as Auburn's A-Day is underway here at Jordan-Hare. On this opening drive of the blue versus white Auburn spring game.
Well, one of the questions, who's going to replace Greg Robinson at left tackle? Sean Coleman makes it look like they're going to be okay on that side. Watch him stay on this block, buries his guy. Cameron Artis Payne has lots of vision to get the ball to the end zone. You got two guys, Sean Coleman, Patrick Miller, both kind of fighting for that left tackle position. Patrick Miller has also played on both sides, but four starters back in that offensive line. The left tackle, the only question mark right now.
Sean Coleman, a young man who so many are rooting for here as he battled leukemia. Has been cancer-free for the past couple years, Todd.
You know, he's a sophomore, but he's 22 years old because he had a couple years away from the game. He's 6'6", 310 pounds. He's got a lot of athletic ability, and he just needs to gain some playing experience now, but was highly regarded coming out of high school, every bit as much as Greg Robinson was.
There's Jeremy Johnson now in at quarterback with the white team. As he was looking Melvin Ray's way out to the 34-yard line.
So what we're seeing now is the number 2 offense being directed by Jeremy Johnson against the number 1 defense in blue.
Peyton Barber, and this is a young man who fumbles the ball there, but many were looking forward to see what he could put forth today. Casanova McKenzie comes up with the fumble recovery. So Peyton Barber
still down on the ground too.
Down on the ground at about the 44-yard line after fumbling there in the recovery by McKenzie. That's the last thing you want to see in a spring game. You want to just come out of it clean, not have anybody suffer any injuries. So as they tend to the redshirt freshman Peyton Barber, we will step away. Football to the BCS championship game.
This guy right here, Duke Williams, is the receiver that everybody has been raving about here in spring football too. Another junior college transfer.
As this is Corey Grant speeding inside the 20. As you talk about the depth at running back between Cameron Artis Payne and Corey Grant and Peyton Barber, all looking to replace the Heisman finalist Trey Mason off to the NFL.
Corey Grant is the speed guy, and he's going to be used in a lot of those wide sweeps. That was the old Statue of Liberty play, bringing him back in motion. Cameron Artis Payne, more of the physical inside runner.
And now Marshall sprints to the near side. He throws it away beyond C.J. Uzama. Corey Grant with 6 touchdowns a year ago. He He was the young man that originally committed to Alabama, went there and then transferred here to the Rivals.
Nice job by Brandon Foles, also number 11, leading that play. One of the big guys they're trying to replace. Obviously, we mentioned Greg Robinson. Jay Prosh, the hybrid fullback H-back guy that was such a great lead blocker, he'll be sorely missed as well.
And that was our first look at Da'Keil Williams, the #1 JUCO recruit in the country out of Mississippi Gulf Coast, who has made his way here to Auburn. Could be a big factor come this fall.
I think the coaches told us about him. Obviously, he has talent, you know, to be ranked as high as he was, but he's a very confident guy. He has a great work ethic, and just his presence and his competitiveness have really elevated that whole group of receivers and brought them to a new level here in the spring.
3rd and goal. Marshall to the end zone again. And that was Sammy Coates out of the back of the end zone. Coates, such a good long ball threat last year. Had that 4th quarter touchdown, the Iron Bowl against Alabama, that tied the game.
Went with the double move down close to the end zone. Of course, that's the same kind of play that he hit Uzama for the game-winning touchdown against Mississippi State with. Close to the end zone, double move and throw it to the back pylon. That time a little bit too far.
Daniel Carlson comes on with a 27-yard field goal attempt. And he's able to put it through. The blue team representing the starters, the first team, with a 10-0 lead here in the annual A-Day from Jordan-Hare. Joe Tessitore, Todd Blackledge back with you here at Auburn for their annual spring game. Blue on top, 10-0. Some new faces replacing some big stars for the Auburn offense, including Sean Coleman trying to land that left tackle job. Greg Robinson could be the top tackle taken in the NFL. And then the Heisman finalist, the running back Trey Mason. With all these deep running back depth, we'll see who emerges. Cameron Artis-Payne already with a touchdown today, and Trey Mason is standing by with Tom Luginbill. Tom?
Well, Trey, it's been a magical year for you. Decided to declare early for the National Football League draft, but back here at Auburn for the spring game. What's this place mean to you? What's it been like to come back here with these youngsters still on the team?
It means a lot to me, you know, to see my brothers get better. But I support them wholly. You know, I wish I was out there, you know, suited up, you know, making plays with these guys. But, you know, my time has passed, and now it's their turn to get us back to the national championship and win it.
Now, everybody looks at Auburn as a spread offensive football team, but when you talk to Gus Malzahn and Rhett Lashley, they describe it as a two-back play-action team. So what's it like for a running back to play in this run scheme?
You know, you'll definitely flourish in this offense. You know, it's just a great offense. And, you know, and Coach Malzahn, if he finds one play that works, doesn't matter what defense you're in, he's going to run that one play. So it was, for us last year, it was kind of our zone read or our power run. They'll run it all game.
Well, finally for you, you're preparing for the National Football League draft. What's your inclination right now and where things stand for you?
You know, things are going well. You know, I'm working hard, and, you know, I'm pretty anxious of seeing up where I'll end up, but it's no telling where I'll end up.
All right, thanks. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
Trey Mason, who broke Bo Jackson's single-season rushing record with Auburn last year. And Todd, as the year went on, I don't know that there was a player in college football that was playing with more downhill momentum of just gaining his stride deeper into the season than Trey Mason.
Well, he looked like he got better the longer the game went, which is the mark of a tremendous back. And I think the combination of he and Nick Marshall with the zone read and the relationship they had and the chemistry they had in the backfield made it just the most devastating run game in college football over the last half of the season. That's a problem with when you want to throw the ball more. Now, Auburn with Jeremy Johnson came out and threw all 3 plays there. They were incomplete on first down, incomplete on second down. 3rd and 10 is not where Auburn is accustomed to being in this offense on 3rd down plays.
As you can tell, they're not going live here on special teams today as Jimmy Hutchinson came in to punt away. NBA playoff action begins tonight on ESPN at 7 o'clock. The Hawks going up against Paul George and the Pacers. Then at 9:30, Zach Randolph and the Memphis Grizzlies facing KD and OKC. First round of the NBA playoffs tonight on ESPN. That blue team with Nick Marshall trots back out there. Cameron Artis-Payne, who had 7 carries, including that touchdown run on that opening drive, will be flanking him in the backfield.
A few guys that we're not seeing today, a couple key guys in this Auburn football team. Reestus Mukes, 4-year starting center, is not going to play in the game today.
I'm getting a quick whistle there when Nick Marshall starts to find his way to the middle of that defense. Let's go down to Luke's.
I'm here with Coach Malzahn. Coach, just standing behind Nick Marshall there and seeing him keeping his eyes downfield, even under duress in the pocket. Isn't that part of the progression you're looking for from him?
Yeah, there's no doubt. Coach Lassie's done a good job with his eyes and his feet. They did a good job covering that last play, but Nick was right with his eyes and his reads, so that's always good to see.
Here's Artis-Payne for a gain of 7.
You know, I saw an interesting thing earlier in the spring. You know, Tom and I and you, we've been to different places. And I was at Ohio State earlier in the spring, and with Braxton Miller, their quarterback, out with the shoulder injury. They didn't practice him, but they wanted to keep him engaged. And so they had a little camera device hooked to his hat, and he stood behind the offense, and he had to watch and then also had a microphone and verbalize what he was seeing in the coverage, kind of what Gus Malzahn was talking about right there with Nick Marshall. Just a way to kind of further their development from a mental standpoint as much as physical. And you know, that's the next step you take as a quarterback. Obviously, Nick Marshall has great physical tools as a runner. His arm is better than people give him credit for, but throwing the football and being accurate throwing the football has more to do with your feet than it does with your arm. And so that's why footwork and balance and timing have been the key points of emphasis this spring for Nick Marshall.
Gus Malzahn make the comment that he feels a little more natural now. This is what he's always done well, is throw the deep ball as he connects to Quan Bray.
So I saw one thing right there with Nick Marshall that's an improvement. He had a guy, Quan Bray, running wide open. When you have a receiver running wide open down the middle of the field, you put the football right on him. You don't try to make the perfect throw. You don't try to lead him. You put it right on him. In the Florida State game, opening possession, championship game, he had a guy running down the field all alone, and he underthrew it, trying to make the perfect throw, and it would have been a touchdown to start the game for Auburn.
Carlson's extra point goes off to the side.
4 minutes, 33 seconds remaining.
Well, the question for Ellis Johnson, why was Quan Bray running by himself down the middle of the field? But again, the eyes of Nick Marshall doing what they need to do, staying downfield. I don't know that Quan Bray was the intended receiver on that play, but there was a breakdown in the coverage, and he saw his man running all by himself towards the end zone. Good read and decision by Nick Marshall.
59-yard touchdown pass. Nick Marshall to Quan Bray, who had 3 touchdown receptions in 2013. Now the white team, 16-0 hole with Jeremy Johnson at quarterback. Patrick Lehman, the running back, after Peyton Barber left with an apparent injury. And that orange jersey will signify that whistle's going to blow when you come in near contact with the quarterback. Jeremy Johnson is an interesting young man from Montgomery, Alabama. Went to Carver High, 6'5", and they have a lot of confidence in what he can do with his arm. I remember talking to Gus Malzahn a year ago saying this guy's going to end up playing in the NFL for 8 years.
Well, he's very talented. In fact, it was very close between he and Nick Marshall last August. I think ideally Gus Malzahn would have loved to have redshirted Jeremy last year, but he couldn't do it because of an injury to Nick Marshall midway through the year. Jeremy Johnson had to come in and play, and he played very well. Now, not against SEC competition, but he still played well when he was called upon. Lost the red shirt, but he's a guy that they think is going to be a great player.
As Patrick Lehman tries to stretch it out to the outside. And Luke's coming out of high school, this was a good-looking athlete. He was Mr. Football in the state of Alabama and Mr. Basketball in the state.
Well, he was, and he got better and better and better from his sophomore to his junior to his senior year. In fact, we broadcasted one of their games just over the hill here at Auburn High School, and he lit up the field. Now, keep in mind, This goes back to Gus Malzahn recruiting Jeremy Johnson prior to Gus Malzahn leaving for Arkansas State, then had the luxury of coming back and fulfilling that recruitment, eventually getting him to sign with Auburn. But burning a redshirt year is a difficult decision to make, but you make it in the betterment of the team. Certainly served the team well a year ago. Now they need him a year from now to be a guy that can step right into the role. One of the reasons why they played him early.
Todd, how do you end up managing the development of the second-string quarterback come spring? They've been giving him about a quarter of the reps with the first team.
Yeah, he's been getting about 25% of the reps, and I think they want to try to find a way to have him involved next fall, even if Nick Marshall stays healthy. And I think that's probably smart. He's a very talented guy. He might be able to do some things. They might be able to create some situations for him to be involved in the games to help them win.
Here's 3rd and long, and that is complete as he gets it to Melvin Ray.
And on his part, and this is the hardest thing for a young guy, a backup quarterback. See, every other backup plays. Backup linebackers play. Backup cornerbacks and running backs, they're on special team. The backup quarterback doesn't play unless it's a blowout or the guy in front of him gets hurt. But you have to train and prepare every week like you're the starter. And that's the real challenge for Jeremy Johnson coming into this season. Certainly he'd want to play. No competitor likes to sit behind another guy, but he has to prepare, especially in an offense like this that calls on the quarterback to run the football as much as they're going to call on Nick Marshall. At any moment, Jeremy Johnson could be the starting quarterback for the Auburn Tigers.
He started last year against Western Carolina, had 4 touchdown passes. In fact, he came off the bench cold against Florida Atlantic. Nick Marshall hurt his shoulder, and on the very first play he came in off the bench, he threw a 36-yard touchdown pass to Sammy Coates. Here's 2nd and 10. And that was battered away actually by the receiver Tony Stevens at the last moment. And it was Trevon Reed who had coverage. He's a receiver a year ago, moved over to defense. Here is Reed. Been a pleasant surprise for Ellis Johnson and Gus Malzahn with that move over at cornerback.
Well, this is a big play right here for Jeremy Johnson. He's got a pretty good drive going here. 3rd and 10 against the #1 defense. Got to read the coverage and make a quick decision where he wants to go with the football.
Third and 10 for the sophomore backup quarterback. And he threw it to the outside of Stevens.
Pretty good coverage on 2 plays in a row by Trevon Reed. Gus Malzahn told us, we said, how was it trying to make Trevon Reed move from offense to defense? Said he came to us.
Yeah, he suggested it.
Said, look, I think I could have a better chance to play, maybe help the team better that way, and it looks like it's been a pretty good move for him.
It's a 50-yard attempt now from Daniel Carlson. A little bit of a breeze to his back. He struggled with that extra point attempt earlier, but here he is making up for it with a 50-yard field goal. How fickle special teams can be.
Yeah.
You hook an extra point attempt, and then you nail this one with good trajectory and rotation and drive. Of course, ESPN is the home to the new college football playoff. The top 4 teams play in the semifinal round on New Year's Day. It's going to be the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl to get things started with the new college football playoff. They'll rotate throughout the New Year's 6 bowls through the years. And then after the Rose and the Sugar, the top 2 will advance to the national championship in North Texas. The college football playoff this season exclusively on ESPN.
Pretty good deal for North Texas having the Final Four in basketball and the championship game in college football.
Here's Marshall crossing route that time to Duke Williams. This is the much talked about junior college recruit, #1 receiver in JUCO in the country, who could play a big role for Auburn this year.
Well, he's in the slot, so he's going to be coming from the left to the right, across the face of the quarterback. Again, you see the play action, good timing, good vision by Nick Marshall. Duke Williams, a big target crossing the middle of the field.
And another one of those intermediate throws that they'd like to see Nick Marshall connect on.
Well, you saw it right there. I mean, some of the play action that they asked the quarterback to do in this offense is not easy.
Corey Grant spinning his way inside the 35-yard line.
That play that he completed to Williams, there's a fake inside, there's a fake around, and then you have to reset your feet, get your eyes downfield. So timing and footwork are critical, particularly in some of the trickier play action stuff they do with this offense.
Play action now.
There's a time.
There's that seam to the tight end, C.J. Uzomah.
That's the throw that Gus Malzahn and Rhett Lashley wanted to see Nick Marshall make. Watch him put this back foot in the ground, step into it, throw on timing right as Uzomah's coming out of his break. That's what he did not do very consistently well last year. That particular kind of play action timing throw into the middle of the field.
Nice target in Uzomah, too. 6'4", 264 pounds. Had 3 touchdowns last year. Come around now with Grant again. And a quick burst inside the 5-yard line. It'll be 1st and goal for the blue team.
The second time we've seen Corey Grant get outside. Brandon Foles, number 11, leading the way. Get that speed out on the perimeter. You pound it inside with the, this running game of Auburn primarily is a power running game. They run counter, they run inside zone, they run power. But they also have the speed to get the ball on the perimeter.
Looking at Duke Williams on the fade. Goes up and gets it. And this crowd knows it. They want to see that all fall long. Da'Keel Duke Williams.
And what Williams did that some of the other receivers did not do earlier is he forced the action with the defensive back. He engaged the cornerback and used his body and his strength to dictate where he wanted to catch the ball. He did not allow the corner to dictate where he was going to catch it. He got engaged. He used his strength, his arms, and then released to go get the football. That's good work by the receiver, using his strength to maintain position, and then Nick Marshall putting it in the right place.
As Williams was matched up with Cameron Melton. Rolling on the field was a touchdown. As he appears to be obviously the feet in, but firm control of the ball throughout the process of the entire catch. Have to maintain control all the way down to the ground there through the entire process of the reception there.
The ruling on the field is confirmed. Touchdown.
Nice way to get things started in front of the home crowd for Duke Williams. Gus Malzahn said, and quickly assessing him, he said, as talented as anyone you'll see out there and highly competitive. Carlson puts it through. 20-point lead for the starters, the blue team. Now, come this August, SEC fans rejoice. ESPN brings you the SEC Network. Over 1,000 live events, including 45 football games, 24/7 coverage of all 21 conference sports. In fact, Arkansas right here at Auburn, August 30th, will be on the SEC Network. You can go to getsecnetwork.com and tell your TV provider to give you all the action of the SEC Network. In fact, the SEC Network will get started with Texas A&M at South Carolina on Thursday, August 28th. And then the crew will make their way down here to the Plains for Arkansas and Auburn to get their seasons underway. Patrick Lehman, a senior, with another carry. He's been getting extensive work with this white team after Peyton Barber, who was a highly touted redshirt freshman, left the game with an apparent injury early on.
One of the areas of strength, I think, this year for the Auburn defense, even though we're not going to see them all today, is their defensive line. I think they've got depth, they've got talent. They've moved a couple guys around, a couple of their bigger interior guys. They've moved outside some to work at playing defensive end. Of course, when you play in the SEC West and you got to beat Alabama and you got to beat LSU, you got to be able to stop some power run teams. take a look at Barber. Went out with that ankle injury, and they were really high on him. They got a lot invested in him. He's a bigger physical back. Probably the biggest and the most physical back that they have right now.
Back-to-back bubbles to Stanton Truitt. Will close out this first quarter as Gus Malzahn saw Nick Marshall's blue team put 3 touchdowns on the board. Cameron Artis-Payne got things started. And they took the deep shot to Quan Bray. And then the new guy in town, Duke Williams, hauling it in as the Blue is up by 20 here on A-Day. Stay with us. From Auburn, Alabama, you're watching the SEC on ESPN. Joe Tessitore, Todd Blackledge, and Tom Luganville here on the Plains as Luke's is standing by with Coach Malzahn.
All right, guys, we're just conversing down here a little bit about what Coach is trying to accomplish. We're starting the series off. This is the twos. You got Jeremy Johnson back. What are you guys going to go with offensively here?
Yeah, we're going to go with a pass here, a little play action off our bubble here. It could possibly check it. They'll probably stay with it here. We're just trying to give our guys some chance to throw and catch out here in front of the crowd.
Yeah, and in terms of, you got Duke, the shot in the end zone, and he's obviously a guy with high expectations. But Jeremy Johnson played as a freshman. What are his expectations for you going into his sophomore year?
Jeremy could start for a lot of teams around the country, and he's done a good job. Coach Lashley's gave him probably about 25% of the reps with our ones, this spring, just to keep him sharp. I know he's with the twos right now, but second half we'll give him a chance to get with the ones.
All right, what do we got going on here?
I didn't hear the play here.
Well, you got to stop talking to me, Coach. Go figure it out. We'll talk TV, you talk ball. All right, guys.
3rd down and 5. Here's what they have. Straight drop back, and then pressure came up the middle against Jeremy Johnson. Wearing that orange jersey, so the quarterbacks are not live. It'll be 4th down. But you see some of the conflict they put defenses into, and you saw the play action prior to that. Such a unique offense where they'll look for the bubble. They ran the bubble twice. They come back to it, and they go over the middle and get a completion prior to that with Johnson.
The thing about it is they're really not a complex offense because they run a lot of the same plays, base running plays. They just give you a lot of different looks to run the same stuff out of. And that's part of the genius of Gus Malzahn. They give you a lot of bells and whistle looks with motion and moves and shifts, but they're going to run pretty much the same kind of stuff at you, and they're going to hit you in the mouth with their running game. That's really what makes them pretty difficult to deal with.
Really the key to success last year. Kept it simple. All that window dressing, but really kept it simple with the run game. A reminder, on Sunday, we've got a divisional battle up at Fenway. It's Baltimore at Boston. Sunday Night Baseball presented by Taco Bell. 7 on ESPN.
I think that, and we've seen it already in this game with either offenses on the field. The best way to slow this offense down is you got to get them off schedule. If they stay on schedule and they're constantly coming up 3rd down and 4, 3rd down and 3, you have very difficult time stopping them. You have to create negative plays against this offense. You got to put them in 2nd and 12 some, 2nd and 13. That's what Florida State had some success with in the championship game. They probably created more negative plays than anybody else against Auburn last year, and Auburn still scored a bunch of points and gained some yards.
2nd and 1. Plenty of work from Cameron Artis-Payne. He's been showing his power and toughness. He took T.J. Davis for a bit of a ride on that first carry, and then carrying a few more defenders for another 1st down for this blue team.
Cameron Artis-Payne has really stepped up his game this spring. He transferred to Auburn last summer from California. He was in a community college, Allen Hancock College, out in Santa Maria, California. And he has really kind of risen to the occasion this spring. With Trey Mason gone, I think he saw his opportunity to really step up and be the guy.
You mentioned his accolades in junior college. He was the #1 junior college running back at over 2,000 yards and 25 touchdowns. So they've done a good job, as you see. Look at the moves here on Cameron Artis-Payne as he crosses inside the 40. They've done a good job of mining the JUCOs and coming up big. We know what they've done with the quarterbacks in recent years, running back and receiver as well.
Well, he looks good so far. Now, he was the star of the game last year in the A-Day game. He is off to a great start. Good patience that time. He kind of worked his way down the line of scrimmage until he saw a crease. Now, keep in mind he's going against backup defensive players, but he looks good running the football.
And here's Duke Williams again, complete to the 20.
You know, Todd, you referenced something in relationship to hitting on JUCOs, and I think that's been so important here because it's a high-risk, high-reward proposition. If they don't pan out, you can really devastate the depth on your football team. If they do, you can have a Nick Marshall-like impact, a Cam Newton-type impact, and this staff has made really good decisions with guys in all the right areas.
Well, you know, Tom, the other part about that is typically, not all the time, and Auburn has proven to be really sharp in this. A lot of times when you bring a junior college guy in, it takes them a while, maybe a year almost, to get used to practicing at the tempo, at the same level, the same physicality that they do at this level. And the Auburn guys that they've brought in, so many of them have been able to contribute quickly and pick that part of it up very, very easily.
Including the guy in the shotgun right here, Nick Marshall. This is the one I marvel at. You know, when Cam Newton came over from Blinn Junior College, he came in January. He was part of spring ball, but Nick Marshall just catching up with things from summer forward. To the end zone he goes. And going up and bringing it down was Sammy Coates. How about that? Wow. The big, powerful, strong-arm receiver Sammy Coates climbs the ladder and hauls this in.
And you know what? I was in the quarterback meeting room 2 days ago, and Rhett Lashley was talking to the quarterbacks about saying, let's give our receivers some chances to make plays. That was good coverage, but you just put the ball up in the air and allow your receiver to go over the defender. Brandon King was in good position. Sammy Coates just went up and got the football out of the air.
Had so many great moments last year, did Coates. And he picks up where he left off. Marshall to Coates, scoring. Our touchdown reception as the blue team, made up of that starting unit, out in front 30-3 over the white team here in Auburn's spring game. Patrick Lehman on the carry. And there is Marshall and Coates doing a little bit of sideline reporting. Is the big personality of Sammy Coates.
Well, Sammy Coates really, you know, came into his own last season, was the team's leading receiver. They really wanted him to concentrate this spring on improving as a route runner, particularly intermediate routes. Everybody knows he's a deep threat guy. Of course, he had that game-tying touchdown in the Iron Bowl that was such an incredible play in the season last year for Auburn. But he's showing flashes again tonight. And the thing about it, and maybe Auburn fans don't like to hear this comparison, but when I look at him, he reminds me of Julio Jones, the former great Alabama receiver, now at the Atlanta Falcons. He's every bit of 220 pounds. He's very athletic and long. And he's a real matchup problem for cornerbacks.
And now consider the fact that this offense will have Duke Williams added to the mix out there on the perimeter. I think that's the one spot where they've probably improved the most when it comes to personnel, is at wide receiver. Johnson was trying to shake free from some of the pressure, and a flag actually comes in at about the 30-yard line.
Well, the first team defense has played pretty well here in the first half. Jeremy Johnson, a very talented guy, can run all the same offensive stuff that Nick Marshall can.
Offense. Penalty is declined. 4th down.
Brought up the fact earlier that last year when they had 4 quarterbacks and they were trying to figure out who would be the starter going into last season, Jeremy Johnson was right there with Nick Marshall in August. They had to make a decision how comfortable they would feel with a true freshman guiding the way for this team. Of course, Marshall won the job, and the rest is history. 4 comebacks in the 4th quarter, an SEC championship, a trip to the BCS championship. It's Nick Marshall ready to come back out there. Gus Malzahn back to business here on the Plains. Blue over the white, 30-3 in the 2nd quarter of Auburn's spring game here at Jordan-Hare. Place that saw some of the most magical moments maybe in recent college football history, like the 73-yarder to Ricardo Lewis to top Georgia, and then the kick six. Chris Davis, 109 yards down the near sideline as the Iron Bowl was theirs on their way to the SEC championship. The Auburn Tigers. And Todd, we walked into Jordan-Hare earlier today. I said, Todd, look at the bushes over there. What happened, Todd? Was it a herd of buffalo that came through?
No, that was the students storming the field at the end of the Iron Bowl. That is a great visual.
Ricardo Lewis, who had the reception, the prayer at Jordan-Hare, but yeah, the bushes over there, the hedges near that student section, they ran through them, celebrating the Iron Bowl victory. You come here in the spring and the damage is still there.
Yeah,
that's a friendly reminder, by the way. They don't mind seeing that.
I think you're right. I think that's a good memory for them.
Here's Marshall sprinting to the near side, and he puts it right on Ricardo Lewis there. Tried to keep that foot in.
Well, Auburn fans, you're seeing Nick Marshall throw the football quite a bit today. I wouldn't expect that this is going to be the main staple of their offense. They're still going to be a run-first team in the zone read aspect, but that's not what they wanted to work on in spring. And really the last half of spring practice has been really dedicated to their passing game, and that's what they've worked on here the last several practices, and that's why they're doing this right now. With Nick Marshall in the game, it's really the emphasis is on the pass.
Here's Corey Grant, and look at Grant. Trey Mason's understudies having a big day for the blue team.
A great blocking downfield by both Uzama and Brandon Fultz, the two tight end H-back guys. If you have long running plays, there has to be excellent blocking on the perimeter, and they got it there. And we have seen Corey Grant flash when he's run the ball on the perimeter. Cameron Artis-Payne has looked good running the ball inside, and this guy has looked excellent running it on the outside.
Carlson keeps his head down, puts that extra point through, and here is Grant. High end zone look.
Now watch 11 and 81 get on blocks and stay on those blocks. And right there you see those two blocks enable Corey Grant to go right in between them and then outrun the safety for the end zone. But if you get big running plays, and this offense has a bunch of them, that means you're getting excellent perimeter blocking as well.
Which is absolutely critical when it comes to this offense. You get those chunk plays, they go 3 plays, 76 yards, and Corey Grant, 54-yard touchdown run. Looking to see continued development with Corey Grant. They'd like to see him be a little more consistent on the inside, or so explosive when he gets out into the open grass. Lyman this time bottled up.
Yeah, the other thing, and a big reason why this offense was so good last year, we've talked about Nick Marshall, we've talked about Trey Mason, but the offensive line was outstanding. And 4 of those starters from last year are back. The only guy that's not back is the left tackle, Greg Robinson, who will probably be a high first-round draft pick in the NFL draft. But they've got talent. They've got guys that can fill into that spot. And I don't really think the offensive line, as good as Robinson was, I don't think the offensive line will experience much drop-off. J.B. Grimes, the offensive line coach, has done a great job in coaching these guys. They're well-conditioned to run this up-tempo offense. And they are a powerful group. Again, this Auburn run game is not a finesse run game. Even though they do the Statue of Liberty and the jet sweeps and those kind of things, the bread and butter is hard-nosed, come downhill, run the football at you.
Patrick Lyman had nowhere to go. You mentioned that offensive line, and they got a 4-year starter there at center who's not in action today, and Reese Dismukes, but young man is going to be an NFL prospect and big part of what's going to happen this fall.
And he's not hurt. They're just holding him out because he's so valuable. Because of his starting experience and all the calls he makes, they don't want to take any chance of anything happening to him in this game because he is really kind of the centerpiece of that very talented offensive line.
There is a look at that offensive line as Sean Coleman's been competing with Patrick Miller to see who will replace a top NFL prospect, Greg Robinson.
They've also moved Avery Young, has played inside at right guard some. Chris Slade's played over at left guard some. And of course, Patrick Miller has swung back and forth between left and right tackle. So trying to build depth as well going into the season.
The SEC champs with that offense revving away here at Auburn. Quarterback Nick Marshall with 3 touchdown passes for the blue team here on A-Day. Reminder that the SEC Network will kick off the entire college football season on Thursday, August 28th. Williams-Brice Stadium, SEC. It's a good one, Todd. Texas A&M, life after Johnny Manziel. South Carolina, Dylan Thompson now the quarterback. Tim Tebow and the crew from SEC Nation will be up there to get everything started on the SEC Network. Gamecocks and Aggies, and Temple and Vandy in Nashville, a doubleheader. You can go to getsecnetwork.com and tell your TV provider that you want to get the SEC Network. And then Arkansas and Auburn, that'll be the home opener here for the SEC champion Tigers. That game will also be on the SEC Network.
You know, that'll be a good challenge for Auburn as well, because Arkansas is a physical football team. Brett Bielema in his second year, you got to expect they'll be better. Their quarterback Brandon Allen had an injury-marred year last year. You got to imagine he'll be better. But they challenge you physically with the way they run the football.
Alex Collins, very talented.
They really challenge you.
Still second down.
They've had trouble on defense and stopping people, and that will be a challenge for Arkansas certainly. But they'll try to bloody your nose running the football the way Auburn does as well.
And Luke is standing by with a guy that's going to be challenging NFL defensive ends for about the next 10 to 12 years. Tom?
I'm here with Greg Robinson, just won the Yellowwood Southernwood Lineman Player of the Year. Excuse me, we're about to get run over right there. Greg, you were a part of this turnaround in the offensive line. There was nothing short of remarkable from the 2012 to the 2013 season. What was it that got this team turned around up front?
I think it's just the fact that we did so bad. It just motivated us and wanted us to, you know what I'm saying, like, realize that we couldn't go through that again. So it was just and also the coaching staff, they really pushed us and made us, you know what I'm saying, like, recognize that's unacceptable and we had to do better.
You only played for Coach J.B. Grimes for 1 year, but he obviously came around and made his mark in the offensive line. What was it that he stressed that you guys were going to have to be accountable for to be a unit?
Consistency in the little things. He always told us, like, the little things matter, you know what I'm saying? Because, like, when we were losing, sometimes we got careless, you know what I'm saying? So, and we, like, forgot about those little things that we needed, you know what I'm saying, like to capitalize and be a better offensive lineman. But as time went on, like, we started to buy into it, and we realized that it started to work, and it was useful. So
good stuff, man. Good luck with the NFL draft.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, guys.
Thank you, Tom. Greg Robinson. His name's going to be called very early come draft night. We talked about that buy-in. You know, you and I both broadcast Auburn games last year. There were certain points in the season where you got the sense things could go either way, but absolutely. I don't know that either one of us, when we called certain games, ever saw what ended up being.
I had them in the LSU game down in Baton Rouge, and when I saw them that night, I didn't think they were going to be a very good, I thought they'd win 6-7 games maybe, but they weren't. They didn't look like a great football team. The thing that was impressive, though, is as bad as they played in the first half, they came out and played well in the second half and made a game of it and never quit. And that spoke to me that, hey, this coaching staff has them going in the right direction. And, of course, Nick Marshall started to take off a couple weeks after that, and they were as hot as anybody in college football down the stretch.
Quickly getting it out to Quan Gray, and he's able to make his way to midfield, brought down by Cameron Melton.
Just to go back a couple plays when Tom was talking to Greg Robinson that happened out on the field. Nick Marshall threw an interception. It was 3rd and 15. It was a bad throw. It was too far to the inside. The safety made the play, but he may have known he had a free shot because Auburn was the defense was offsides. They got the 5-yard penalty. It's still 3rd and 10. Then he made a beautiful throw to pick up the first down and keep this drive going. So I think from a passing standpoint, Nick Marshall has showed pretty well here today.
That was a bubble look to Ricardo Lewis, and he couldn't hold on to it.
You know, Nick Marshall there trying to pop the ball out, as you referenced to Ricardo Lewis. And guys, this is a little bit of the coaching that's taken place here. Ricardo Lewis, Quan Bray, C.J. Uzama, and Travon Reed, who's now on defense, were all high school quarterbacks. So when they entered into the college ranks, came in here at Auburn, they've had to be coached up and transitioned into another position. It gives you an idea of the speed and athleticism on the perimeter, but also guys that were not ready-made when they arrived on campus.
That's a good point.
3rd and 6 over the middle, complete to Williams.
This guy was ready-made when he got
Yes, he was, wasn't he? just throw him out there and let him do his thing, huh? Duke Williams. There's a guy who was also a quarterback. Rhett Lashley was a quarterback at Arkansas, and before that, Shiloh Christian. So he's been running the same system for over 15 years, been playing it since the 8th grade, because Shiloh Christian is where Gus Malzahn first put forth this offense. And inside the 10 and going in is Quan Bray. A little pitch and catch from Nick Marshall as Quan Bray has scored his 2nd of the day. What did Gus Malzahn say to Tom Luganville earlier today? I'm going to throw it around a little bit and give the fans something to watch. Not what we saw for most of last year on that tremendous ride to a conference championship. So that starting unit putting up 44 points on the 2nd team defense.
Well, they averaged 39.5 last year. They're
right on course.
First half, yeah.
On Sunday, SEC baseball is going to take center stage as Vanderbilt, number 12 in the country, takes a visit to Arkansas. SEC baseball, Vandy in Arkansas, Sunday at 1 on ESPN. In fact, Auburn is in action today in South Carolina. Bo Jackson made his way over there to throw out the first pitch. Been a big weekend for Bo. He's been doing his Bo Bikes Bama fundraising for the tornado relief. He's been doing that for 3 years.
Wonder if they let him take any batting practice before the game.
They'd have to worry about the lights out in center field. Jonathan Wallace now in at quarterback. Lawyer Tillman takes the carry.
Jonathan Wallace is, I was impressed with him in the quarterback meeting room. He is a real sharp guy. I mean, he really knows what's going on. Some of the coaches think, and I think he probably has some idea that he may want to get into coaching. Would probably be a very good football coach. Really understands things exceptionally well.
Tillman is wrestled down again, that time by Cameron Toney. Wallace is a young man who actually had 4 starts during that last year of Gene Chizik's coaching tenure here at Auburn. That was a team that was winless in that SEC play and 3 wins overall.
So I think what we're seeing now is indication that we're done with Nick Marshall for the ball game, unless they want him to run one more 2-minute offense. But Jonathan Wallace coming in with the white team, that means Jeremy Johnson will flip over to the blue team. However, again, they may want to see Nick Marshall operate 1 2-minute hurry-up offense, even though their offense is kind of a no-huddle hurry-up all the time, but working against the clock a little bit here to end his day.
Number 27, Robert Gimpaluzzi.
It's a 3 and out with Wallace running the offense there. As Nick Marshall, 236 yards and 4 touchdown passes here in this first half.
It's interesting when you look at it, and again, you can't overstate what a remarkable job Gus and his staff did with this team last year. But when they started out the year, Nick Marshall was actually throwing the ball quite a bit. And they won, other than the LSU game, but they weren't a great-looking offense at that point. And after the LSU game, they had a bye week, and they kind of looked at everything and said, you know what? We don't need to throw this much right now. What we have is a really good offensive line. We've got some backs. Our quarterback's pretty good at the zone read stuff. Let's change our identity a little bit. And a credit to Gus and his offensive staff. They made that call during a bye week. And then there were some games down the stretch where Nick Marshall threw the ball 7 times, 8 times, 9 times a game, but they were running for 350 yards a game, and that's when the offense really took off.
And as you said, Johnson playing now with the starters, the blue unit, that's incomplete. And just to add to that stretch you detailed of Nick Marshall and managing things well, going to the run game, but passing ball, during that 9-game win streak, he accounted for 19 touchdowns and only 5 total turnovers.
Yeah. Well, again, they weren't throwing it very much because they didn't have to. And, you know, when you can throw when you want to and not when the defense dictates you have to throw, boy, you have the upper hand as an offense.
So here is Johnson now on 2nd and 10. As that was incomplete, trying to connect with Marcus Davis.
Same throw to the same guy. The first one was on Jeremy Johnson. The ball was thrown too high. That one was on Marcus Davis. That one was thrown on the numbers where you want it, and Davis just not able to make the catch. And another 3rd and 10 for Jeremy Johnson. He's had more of those in the first half than he cared to like.
Could be the final play of this first half. Then it is Corey Grant adding to his total. Both Cameron Artis-Payne and Corey Grant look very good at running back for the blue team with a 44-3 lead. Tom Luginbill is standing by with Coach Malzahn.
Coach, no doubt you wanted to throw it today, not only for your fans for the spring game, but you needed to find out a little bit about the passing game and Nick Marshall.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, that was part of our plan, you know, give our guys a chance to run down the field, get our quarterback a chance to get their reads, and I thought overall they did a solid job with it.
How have you felt about the production and the overall progression of the offensive skill, which seems to have been enhanced as a team from a year ago?
Yeah, I really believe so. We got a lot of guys coming back. We added a couple guys I think can really do some things with the ball in their hands, so it was good to see them out there.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Back out in front of the fans since that night on January 6th, out at the Rose Bowl when they were 13 seconds away from being national champs. We'll talk SEC big picture when we return. Now that's a reward from one of the greatest turnarounds in college football history. The SEC championship rings being handed out to the Auburn Tigers here at halftime of their A-Day spring game. 44-3, the blue team, the first stringers, Todd, led by quarterback Nick Marshall.
Well, we were told that they were going to throw the football. Nick Marshall threw it 22 times in the first half. Most of them all right on target. A couple touchdowns. That one to the new junior college receiver, Duke Williams. Beautiful throw to Sammy Coates and an even prettier catch by the big fella in the back of the end zone. So very productive Nick Marshall throwing the football in that first half. 13 of 22, 236 yards and 4 touchdowns. When they ran the football, Cameron Artis-Payne did a nice job running inside, bouncing outside. They didn't run the quarterback, so they just focused on the backs running it. It was Artis-Payne inside. It was Corey Grant running outside, showing that speed. And this Auburn offense, yeah, they were working against backups, but they looked pretty efficient and pretty effective in that first half.
Grant had 128 yards rushing. Artis-Payne had 97 as they're looking for the replacement to Heisman finalist Trey Mason. Tom Luginbill, your thoughts at halftime?
You know, one of the unique things about a spring football contest like this is I get to stand behind the offense. So sitting with Coach Malzahn and watching Nick Marshall work through his progressions and watching his feet on up through his eyes. And Todd and I talked about this through the week, and Todd's talked about it in our broadcast. If your feet are in sync with your eyes, You're going to be balanced. You're going to be able to get the ball off in nice rhythm and some timing. I think that's been the biggest difference that we've seen from Nick Marshall from last year in the progression through the spring. He has certainly been as advertised in the passing game in terms of what the coaches wanted to see.
Feels like there's been two distinct jumps of development with Nick Marshall.
Yeah.
One was before the BCS championship game, where somewhere in those weeks, Malzahn said, it was palpable. You could just sense it in the guy. And now here in spring football, concentrating more on balance, rhythm, footwork, eyes.
I thought it was really interesting, too. We're talking about the physical attributes and development. I think his development as a leader of this football team has really taken to a new level as well. And when we talked to some of the players yesterday, I was amazed when Sammy Coates is the guy that brought it up and said, you know what, we started throwing and working on our passing game the day after the championship game loss to Florida State. And Nick Marshall kind of spearheaded that, working on his timing. He wasn't here this time last year in spring, so he had the whole off season. He's had a whole spring. He'll have a whole August training camp. Nick Marshall will be a much, much better quarterback next year or this coming season than he was a year ago.
That speaks to the commitment to return from the BCS title game and get right back to work. Of course, last year, most of the work came in a magical form with 4 fourth-quarter comebacks. It got started against Mississippi State. Of course, Gus Malzahn introduced as the head coach. And then little magic with C.J. Uzama, the 11-yard touchdown catch. Texas A&M, Trey Mason had the touchdown run late. And then, of course, the two moments that they'll never forget. Ricardo Lewis, the prayer at Jordan Hare to defeat Georgia. And then the Iron Bowl. And Chris Davis would take the missed field goal return, 109 yards. That was speed against Biggs out on the field there to take the Iron Bowl and earn themselves an SEC championship ring. Trey Mason, the Heisman finalist, who had over 1,800 rushing yards and 23 touchdowns last year for Auburn. Played two 12-minute quarters in that first half where the clock stopped. And the plan has been to have a running clock here in the second half. Of course, NBA playoff action is underway, and it'll be continuing tonight on ESPN as the Hawks and Pacers meet up. And then it is KD and OKC hosting Memphis. First round of the NBA playoffs tonight on ESPN. First down run here as Jonathan Wallace is the quarterback and Andrew Williams is in at tailback.
I would say the only negative so far for Auburn in this spring game is the early injury to Peyton Barber, their running back, the redshirt freshman out of Alpharetta, Georgia, that they really want to get a good look at today as kind of the number 3 guy, but the more bruiser of their running backs. Had the ankle injury early. Other than that, I think the guys they wanted to get a good look at today, they were able to do that so far.
Keep in mind they had an outstanding recruiting crop too, including a 5-star running back in Rock Thomas, who had over 2,200 rushing yards in high school, and that's a guy that Tom Luganbill, a lot of folks, yourself recruiting expert, think could come in and contribute right away.
Number 33.
I think there's no question that he can. Now, you've got to be careful with young running backs in terms of pass protection, and you want to be cautious in terms of ball protection. But as far as overall talent level is concerned, he's as good, if not better, than what they have on the roster here. I think they're expecting him to have a significant contribution as a true freshman.
They're down at 6 here. Jonathan Wallace in at quarterback for the white team.
Just to build on what Tom said, with a young back, they can play right away, particularly on early downs, as long as they get the basic things down. The one area where you typically worry about a young running back is with the pass protection aspect, because most of your 5-star running backs didn't have to do a lot of pass blocking and weren't used to that aspect of the game. That's the thing that takes the longest for a talented running back coming from high school to college.
Thing that the coaches want to trust the most as well. That was batted out of the hands of Jonathan Wallace.
So now we'll see Jeremy Johnson with the ones. And Jeremy Johnson in the first half, 6 of 13, was sacked once, 43 yards, but now he gets an opportunity to go behind the #1 offensive line and throw to the #1 and the top reserve wideouts. So a good opportunity for him right now to make some plays.
He pulled the red shirt off of him early into last season. Marshall was banged up. Johnson had the start against Western Carolina. Got playing time throughout the season. By all accounts, the future of the program. Some of the guys have been switching jerseys, going from white to blue. Blue has been signifying the first teamers, but as we get deeper into the game and those guys have finished off their day, they're filling out that side of the roster. Patrick Lyman, the running back with Jeremy Johnson out of the gun. And Johnson's going to take a shot downfield, and he was looking for Tony Stevens. Coverage came from Briggs.
Not sure if Jeremy was trying to throw to the back shoulder on that one or not, but he really underthrew his intended receiver. Got the pass interference call on the defense, but that ball was well underthrown, and fortunate that he got the penalty call.
Well, the one thing I'm noticing about Jeremy Johnson just standing behind him is he doesn't have much of a sense of urgency right now to his demeanor. It's almost as if he's going through the motions to some degree. He's so physically gifted, but there's not that oomph behind him. He almost doesn't follow through with throws, and threw a nice little dart there on the inside slant route to Melvin Ray. But this is a guy that's capable physically of doing more with his physical tools, and I think he's got to take on more of a leadership role, knowing full well he's the backup. But he's going to be counted on to play in certain packages, and you never know, as Todd would tell you, when your turn's going to come.
Yeah, and I think part of that is just his, a normal maturation, growth as a quarterback, as a person, and I think that's where he's going to go. I'm really impressed with Rhett Lashley. Even though he's a young guy, I think he's a really bright quarterback coach. I think he has good rapport with the guys he coaches in that room. And I think he'll bring Jeremy Johnson along really well here through this summer and get him ready to go for next season. Because as you mentioned, again, with this offense, if you ask your quarterback to run as much as Nick Marshall will run, Jeremy Johnson can be one play away from being the starting quarterback for the Auburn Tigers. And that could happen in game 1. It could happen in game 11. You never know, but you have to prepare every day like you are the starter. And that's it takes maturity and kind of a big picture mentality to do that, and that's where Jeremy Johnson has to get to.
Johnson facing a 3rd and 10 here.
One. Get up on him. Get up on him. You gotta be sick of this. You gotta be sick of this.
He tucks and runs, and we'll get the whistle here. His quarterbacks are not live in the spring game.
Again, probably one of the biggest things this offense has to do, if you're the quarterback running this offense, is try to keep your team on schedule. And I think in this game so far, one of the things that's hurt Jeremy Johnson is he's had too many 3rd down and 10 situations that he's faced with the offense. You got to be efficient on 1st down, throwing the football. I mean, I love throwing on 1st down, but if you're incomplete most of the time and you're 2nd and 10 a lot, the defense gains an advantage on you. And for this offense in particular, they're not built to throw and survive on 3rd and 10, 3rd and 11 for consistent periods of a game.
Daniel Carlson Had plenty of leg on a 51-yard attempt. Made a 50-yarder earlier. It was off to the side there. As you're watching the SEC on ESPN. Glad you're with us. Joe Tessitore, Todd Blackledge, and Tom Luganville here on A-Day. Auburn's spring game. Alabama's having their spring game on the other side of the state at Bryant-Denny. Interesting year of transition in the league as Nick Marshall returns at quarterback here at Auburn, but some other new faces that we will get introduced to throughout the league as Wallace hands off this time to Damian Lewis.
Number 30, Damian Lewis on the carry.
Discussed Alabama's situation. Earlier we had a conversation at halftime about the programs that'll be in transition trying to find a new quarterback.
Wallace is 2 yards. Second down 12.
Jonathan Wallace, once a starter in the SEC at the end of Gene Chiswick's last season here on the Plains. Started 4 games. 2nd and 12. And Lewis takes it to the right side as he is taken down to 35.
I mentioned in the first half, one of the real strengths of this Auburn defense is their depth along the defensive line. Seen a couple guys in there right now. Jeffrey Whitaker, number 54, who missed all of last season with an injury. Ben Bradley in there at the other defensive tackle. And a guy that is a big-time recruit, Montravius Adams, number 1, who was an inside defensive tackle, has worked some at defensive end this spring. He's a big physical guy on the edge, and that time he held his point and forced the ball carrier outside for a very minimal gain.
3rd down and 9. Wallace threw it high. Montravius Adams, and you talked to coaches a year ago, I mean, especially for a freshman, they were quick to make the comment that, oh, this is potentially a 3-year guy and done off to the NFL.
Well, he's got talent. He's obviously got great size, and you consider the up potential of him and also Carl Lawson, who had a great freshman year, very productive, disruptive defensive end. Lawson not playing in the game tonight or today because of a knee bruise. Elijah Daniel, another young defensive end they're real high on, that has been banged up a little bit here in the spring. So they've got some talented young defensive linemen. And again, Rodney Gardner, one of the finest defensive line coaches in the SEC, and great recruiter, great position coach. He likes to have a lot of guys that he can rotate in and out.
There's Carl Lawson, who, Tom, was one of the very top recruits in the country for Gus Malzahn's first signing day. It was really a huge score for Malzahn and his coaching staff right out of the gate to gain some momentum on the recruiting trail.
Well, and it's such a significant position of need. Keep in mind that was the same class that featured Robert Kimdichie, and we had Kimdichie number 1 and Carl Lawson actually number 2 overall in the country. Came in, was as advertised, probably exceeded expectations, but as Todd referenced, there is a nice young core nucleus of defensive front personnel at Auburn, and if you've paid attention to the SEC, that's an area where you better have depth, and you better be able to rotate guys in and out.
There are the key returning players for the Auburn defense. Obviously, they lose Dean Ford, who was last year's sack leader, so they will see who steps up at defensive end.
And I've told people all the time when people ask me, I live in Ohio in a Big Ten country, and people ask me about the SEC and why is it better than other conferences, what sets it apart. And it's very easy for me to point out the biggest difference. You know, there's speed everywhere in college football and skill positions. Every conference has great speed. But the difference of the SEC and any other league is the depth and the talent in the defensive line. From top to bottom in this league, you just don't see that anywhere else in college football.
And they have all forms of it, too.
Yeah.
They have the 300-plus run stoppers, and guys who can clog the middle. They have the speed edge rushers, and typically 7 or 8 guys who can rotate in on the championship caliber teams.
And Tom can probably speak to this better than anybody. One of the advantages and one of the reasons I think that you see that in the SEC is that year in and year out, if you look at where are the top high school defensive tackles and defensive ends coming from, the footprint of where those guys come from is the Southeast, is this part of the country. And that's why I think the rosters are stocked with so much talent at that position in this league.
Well, there's no question, Todd, whether it's been Jadeveon Clowney or Daquan Bowers or Robert Kimdichie, Carl Lawson, is Montravius Adams, who we referenced. Each and every one of those young men are from the southeast region of the country. It's a deep and plentiful player pool at the most impactful position in all of football.
Jeremy Johnson hits Tony Stevens right in stride for a touchdown.
This was a nice drive for Jeremy Johnson. He started with a good early down throw. Again, staying on schedule. He hasn't been able to do it for most of his time out there, but he did on this drive. And this is a beautiful touch throw right in between the corner and the safety. Dropped it in the bucket there for the touchdown to Tony Stevens.
Tony Stevens, a redshirt freshman. Brett Lashley says, you know, he's shown some flashes. And he plays on the ball. Long frame, 6'4", another receiving threat for this Auburn offense. Team up 51-3. You're watching the SEC on ESPN. Jordan-Hare Stadium, Auburn's spring game here on A-Day. Joe Tessitore, Todd Blackledge, Tom Luganville with you. Some of the key games that we will see in the conference this year. Although, Todd, we put up so many of those traditional big games. Yeah. But this conference is so good and so deep from top to bottom that you never really know what will end up being the key games. Because a year ago, who would have ever thought that games including Missouri and this Auburn team that was winless the year prior would be in so many key games.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to project. I mean, you expect certain guys to be good, and that's why, you know, I guess this gives me my opportunity to make this point. That's why I don't like even talking about polls in college football or who's who until they've played for about a month. I don't think there should be a poll in college football taken until the first week in October. Because you just don't know until teams start playing. Just like Nick Marshall, who we talked about. Nobody even knew who Nick Marshall was outside of Auburn, Alabama at this time last year, and he wasn't even here. So he didn't get there till August. They didn't make a decision on who the starting quarterback was going to be until about 2 weeks before the opener. Next thing you know, a few months later, he's leading his team in the national championship game against Florida State.
And Nick Marshall, to most SEC fans, was just a cornerback recruit. Started his career at Georgia, got himself into a little bit of trouble, tried to straighten things out, made the transition to JUCO and played quarterback. And oh, by the way, Gus Malzahn and the staff picked him up. That's all he was to most SEC fans. Fourth quarter action now as Tucker Tuberville is in at quarterback, the son of the former coach here at Auburn.
His dad's now coaching at Cincinnati, up in my neck of the woods. Tucker started his career at Texas Tech when his dad was the head coach down there, and you know, I think their family always loved Auburn. I think that was probably a decision Tucker made, that if I'm going to go somewhere else, I'd rather finish up at Auburn than up in Cincinnati. And
homecoming for him.
Yeah, good opportunity.
Obviously, Dad was here for a decade. Come back home to Auburn, Alabama. Get to be part of what Gus Malzahn has been putting forth here. We've been talking a lot about the SEC network. That'll be up and going in August, and come Monday, August 15th, the Paul Feinbaum Show will be available on the SEC Network. 4-hour radio show, the mouth of the South, guy who knows college football inside and out in these parts, especially every Monday through Friday. And Paul's new book will be also coming out in August, entitled My Conference Can Beat Your Conference. Patrick Lyman with the carry here. Jonathan Wallace continues to get snaps at quarterback for this blue team. Blue team represented the starting unit led by that man, Nick Marshall, who had 4 touchdown passes in the first half. Play action now. Lost his footing for a moment, but takes a shot downfield. And Tony Stevens had a weight on it before the coverage caught up with him.
Yeah, that little slip by Jonathan Wallace is what prevented him from really stepping into that throw and throwing it on time, and that's why it was underthrown.
Just to add to what you were preaching in the first half with Nick Marshall, how on the play action, footwork becomes timing, becomes accuracy. Third down and 5 now for Wallace. Patrick Lyman still in at running back. Peyton Barber left with an injury earlier today. And they go with the draw as he fights his way for a first down.
It's called
out to the 36-yard line.
The play's called the smoke draw. I can remember seeing that for a long time. It's kind of a unique play because at the snap, the linemen all turn and face like they're going to block for a sprint out pass, and then you run the draw back out the other side.
Another strike downfield. It's the same play that they tried to run earlier when he lost his footing, and once again incomplete, looking for Tony Stevens. They use the play action off the jet sweep and then try to take a strike downfield. It'll be 2nd and 10. Here's Wallace this time. Trimble.
See, that's a perfect example of why a bubble screen is effective. I mean, B.J. Trimble, it's like a running play. You get the ball to the guy in space. Instead of making him run out to get it right there, you throw it out to him. Now it's just a running play. One-on-one in space makes a guy miss. Breaks a couple tackles, and a throw that was very easy to complete, about a 7-8 yard throw, turns into a big gain down the field.
First down at the 41. Whistles come in with the flag, using a running clock here in the second half.
False start, number 53, offense. Yard penalty, still first down.
You know, as much as anything, what these spread offenses have done to college football, you know, the NFL game is a game of matchups. It's a game where you look to where you have an advantage and you take advantage of that matchup. And how that's trickled down to the college game is the spread offenses, where you spread people out by formation, you expose who's going to have trouble covering somebody in space. You want to play football out in space, you get the ball in the hands of quick playmakers, and if another team or your opponent has guys that are going to struggle in that kind of a position, then you go at them, and you expose them.
Wallace getting it to Ray, crossing shallow underneath.
The pass complete to number 18, Melvin Ray.
Melvin Ray, a former minor league baseball player, was part of the Dodgers organization. Went to baseball right out of high school and came here to Auburn originally as a walk-on. 3rd and 5 now for Wallace. And it's Ray once again as he slipped down just inside the 20.
They've run the bubble screen. You fake the bubble screen. Nice job by Jonathan Wallace selling that with his shoulders. The thing I liked about that pump fake, he didn't take his left hand off the football. He did it with a shoulder roll, so he was ready to reload quickly and throw the football.
Looking for Ray once again.
Pretty good throw, I thought, by Jonathan Wallace. Again, did a nice job with his eyes that time, holding the safety towards the middle of the field and then throwing to that corner for the what would have been a touchdown.
Lyman in motion here on 2nd and 10. Inside little tunnel screen as Tony Stevens will trot into the end zone. Well, confidence building for Jonathan Wallace and Tony Stevens here towards the end of the spring game.
Nice job getting it quickly to the receiver. Xavier Dampier, the backup center, does a nice job getting out in front of this play. Watch number 52. Gets a little piece of a block. Tony Jones into the end zone. Tony Stevens, rather.
Man, look at you. Good job, son.
Tony Stevens with 2 touchdown catches. It's a 10-play drive as Wallace capped it to Stevens. Alex Kaviklis now in at place kicker with the extra point. So the road ahead for Auburn, trying to defend the SEC championship. It opens up on the SEC network right here at home on August 30th, and then they take a tricky one in non-conference, a Thursday nighter, week 3 on ESPN at K-State. This is a game when we sat with Gus Malzahn yesterday, and obviously the meat of the SEC schedule is what it is. Yeah. There's no gimme there. But that was the game that Malzahn was quick to mention, Tom.
Well, it's a tricky game. You know, first of all, you know, none of the players here at Auburn are going to have any familiarity with Kansas State or what their style of play is. They're out in a different conference, you know, halfway across the country for these guys. And but Kansas State is a very physical football team. They play physical on offense. They like to run the football in power running, very similar to this Auburn offense. They're fundamentally sound and physical on defense, so that will not be an easy game for Auburn. Auburn is probably going to be favored, probably has the stronger team going in, but that's not an easy place to play. It's not an easy trip to make, and on a Thursday night, it'll be pretty electric there in Manhattan, Kansas.
Sure will. That is on September 18th, so something to look forward to. Thursday night football. So Auburn will be at K-State. The thing to note here in the 6-1-1 schedule format of the SEC, that they pull South Carolina as their SEC East rotational game. Now they get them here at home. Of course, always have the traditional rivalry with Georgia, which is at Georgia. But that's not an easy task to get the Gamecocks as your other SEC East team. There's Nick Marshall.
Yeah, I would expect South Carolina to be pretty good this year. You know, as Tom talked about at halftime, Dylan Thompson's a 5th-year senior, has played some ball there. He's had success there at the quarterback position. Mike Davis, before he got nicked up towards the end of the year, was, you know, as good as any running back in the conference. I think that's a team under Steve Spurrier that will be a real contender again in the East.
4 of the 5 offensive linemen also returning for South Carolina. It was a good day for Nick Marshall and his development. 236 yards in that first half, 4 touchdowns. Last year, of course, did it on the ground with over 1,000 yards rushing in this run-oriented offense of Auburn, leading them to an SEC championship. Now trying to be a little more balanced offensively. And his blue team did a lot of damage. That engine was revving. 58-3, the blue over the white. Coming up next is the Sports Center special, Gruden's quarterback camp, Johnny Manziel. For Todd Blackledge and Tom Luganbill, I'm Joe Tessitore. Enjoy the rest of your day. Glad you're with us here on A-Day at Jordan-Hare Stadium in Auburn, Alabama.